Jake Morrison pushed his cleaning cart down the long hallway of Kepler 9 station. The wheels made a soft squeaking sound on the metal floor. He had been working here for 2 years now, cleaning up after aliens from dozens of different worlds. Most people thought his job was boring, but Jake liked it. He got to see parts of the station that others never visited. The medical wing was always quiet at this time of day. Dr. Amanda Price had gone home hours ago, leaving only the night shift nurses to watch over the patients. Jake preferred working when fewer people were around. It gave him time to think and do his job properly. He stopped outside room 247. The door had a special lock that required 2 different key cards to open. Jake had clearance to clean inside, but he always felt nervous about this particular room. Behind that door lived something that most people on the station tried to forget about. Jake swiped both cards and heard the lock click open. He pushed his card inside and turned on the lights. The room looked like a cross between a hospital room and a zoo enclosure. One wall was made of thick glass, and behind it was a small living space with soft bedding, water dishes, and several toys that nobody ever played with. In the far corner of the enclosure, a small creature sat perfectly still. It looked like a miniature dragon from the old Earth stories that Jake's grandmother used to read to him. The creature was about the size of a house cat, with golden scales that caught the light. Its wings were folded tight against its back, and its long tail was wrapped around its feet. The dragon's name was Zix. Jake had learned this from reading the medical charts, though the creature had never spoken a single word since arriving at the station 3 months ago. Dr. Price had explained to the cleaning staff that Zix was a young draconian, one of the most intelligent species in the galaxy. But something terrible had happened to him, and now he could not speak at all. Jake began his cleaning routine. He mopped the floor outside the enclosure and wiped down all the medical equipment. The whole time he could feel golden eyes watching him. Most of the other cleaners found this creepy, but Jake thought the little dragon just looked lonely. "Hey there, Zix," Jake said quietly as he cleaned. "How are you doing today?" The dragon did not respond. He never did. But Jake noticed that Zix's head tilted slightly when he spoke. This was more reaction than most people got. Jake had grown up on a farm in Ohio before joining the space services. He had always been good with animals, even the scared and hurt ones. His father used to say that Jake had gentle hands and a patient heart. Looking at Zix, Jake felt the same way he had when finding injured birds as a child. "You know," Jake continued, spraying cleaner on the glass wall, "I had a cat back home that looked a bit like you. Well, not really like you since you're obviously much more special, but she was small and golden too. Her name was Buttercup." Zix's ears twitched. It was a tiny movement, but Jake caught it. He smiled and kept talking while he worked. "Buttercup was really shy when we first got her. Wouldn't come out from under the porch for weeks. My mom wanted to take her back to the shelter, but I asked her to wait. I knew she just needed time." Jake finished cleaning the glass and moved on to organizing the medical supplies on the nearby shelves. The room had to be kept perfectly clean because Dr. Price ran all sorts of tests on Zix. She was trying to figure out what was wrong with him and how to help him speak again. "The thing about shy animals," Jake said, "is that they're usually not really shy at all. They're just scared. And who can blame them? The world can be a pretty scary place." For the first time since Jake had been cleaning this room, Zix moved. The little dragon stood up and walked closer to the glass wall. He sat down right in front of where Jake was working and looked up at him with those bright golden eyes. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. This was definitely new behavior. He crouched down so he was at eye level with Zix. "Well, hello there," Jake said softly. "It's nice to finally meet you properly." Zix tilted his head to one side, then the other. His eyes never left Jake's face. There was something very human about the expression, like the dragon was trying to figure something out. "I bet you understand everything we say, don't you?" Jake asked. "Dr. Price thinks you do. She says your people are really smart. Smarter than humans, probably." Jake went back to his cleaning, but he kept talking. He told Zix about his hometown, about the farm where he grew up, about his family back on Earth. He talked about his favorite foods and the movies he liked to watch. He even told Zix about his girlfriend Lisa, who worked in the station's communication center. All the while, Zix listened. The dragon followed Jake's movements with his eyes and seemed to hang on every word. When Jake laughed at his own stories, Zix's mouth opened slightly, almost like he was trying to laugh too. By the time Jake finished cleaning, an hour had passed. Usually he could clean this room in 20 minutes, but tonight he had taken his time. He packed up his supplies and prepared to leave. "I'll see you tomorrow night, Zix," Jake said as he pushed his cart toward the door. "Maybe I'll bring some pictures to show you. I bet you'd like to see what Earth looks like." As Jake reached for the door controls, he heard something that made him freeze. It was barely a sound at all, more like a whisper of air, but it came from behind him, from inside the enclosure. Jake turned around slowly. Zix was standing at the glass wall with one small hand pressed against it. His mouth was open and he was clearly trying to make some kind of sound. Nothing came out, but the effort was obvious. "Are you trying to say something?" Jake asked, walking back to the enclosure. Zix nodded. He actually nodded just like a human would. Then he pressed both hands against the glass and opened his mouth again. This time Jake heard the faintest whisper of sound. Jake's eyes filled with tears. In all the medical reports and all the tests and examinations, no one had mentioned that Zix was trying to speak. They had all assumed he simply could not or would not talk. "It's okay," Jake said gently. "You don't have to force it, but I want you to know that I'll be here every night. And whenever you're ready to try again, I'll be listening." Zix stepped back from the glass and nodded again. Then he did something that shocked Jake completely. The little dragon smiled. It was definitely a smile, even though his face was shaped differently than a human's. Jake left the room that night feeling like something important had just happened. He did not know exactly what it was, but he knew that tomorrow night could not come fast enough. For the first time in months, Zix had tried to communicate with someone, and that someone had been a simple cleaner from Ohio who just happened to care enough to listen. Jake could hardly concentrate on his work the next day. Every time he mopped a floor or emptied a trash bin, his mind went back to Zix in that moment when the little dragon had tried to speak. He had not told anyone about it yet. He wanted to be sure it was real before getting Dr. Price's hopes up. When evening came, Jake hurried through his other cleaning duties. He wanted to spend as much time as possible in room 247. He had even brought something special with him. Tonight, a small music player that his girlfriend Lisa had given him for his birthday. Jake knocked gently on the door before entering, even though he knew Zix could not answer. It seemed like the polite thing to do. When he opened the door, he found Zix waiting for him at the glass wall just like the night before. "Hey there, buddy," Jake said, feeling a little silly for how excited he was to see a dragon. "I brought something I thought you might like." Jake set up his cleaning supplies and then pulled out the music player. It was small enough to fit in his pocket, but it could play hundreds of songs from Earth. Jake's favorite music was from the 1980s, the same decade his parents had grown up in. "I don't know if your people have music," Jake said as he started cleaning, "but humans love it. We use it to feel better when we're sad, to celebrate when we're happy, and sometimes just to have something nice in the background." Jake pressed play on the device. The opening guitar chords of "Don't Stop Believin'" filled the room. Zix's reaction was immediate and dramatic. His eyes went wide, his ears perked up, and he pressed both hands against the glass wall. "You like that?" Jake asked, grinning. "Yeah, that's a good one. This band is called Journey. They're from way before I was born, but their music is still popular." As the song continued, Zix began to move. It was not quite dancing, but his head bobbed in time with the music and his tail swayed back and forth. When the chorus started, Zix opened his mouth and Jake could see him trying to make sounds along with the melody. Jake was amazed. He'd found something that Zix truly enjoyed, something that made the lonely little dragon come alive. For the rest of the hour, Jake played song after song while he worked. Zix responded to each one differently. He seemed to love the upbeat rock songs, but also enjoyed the slower ballads. The breakthrough came during Sweet Child O' Mine. As the guitar solo played, Zix suddenly made a sound that was definitely not accidental. It was a small chirp, almost like a bird, but it matched the rhythm of the music perfectly. Jake stopped cleaning and stared at Zix. "Did you just sing along?" Zix looked embarrassed, if dragons could look embarrassed. He stepped back from the glass and wrapped his tail around himself again. No, don't stop," Jake said quickly. "That was amazing. Here, let me play it again." Jake restarted the song, and this time he encouraged Zix to make sounds. By the third time through, Zix was chirping and humming along with confidence. His voice was beautiful, like wind chimes mixed with birdsong. "You have a wonderful voice," Jake told him. "I bet when you could talk normally, you sounded incredible." At the mention of talking, Zix's happy mood changed. He sat down heavily and his golden scales seemed to lose some of their shine. Jake realized he had accidentally reminded Zix of his problems. "Hey, I'm sorry," Jake said, sitting down on the floor so he was closer to Zix's level. "I didn't mean to make you sad. Want to hear more music?" But instead of just nodding or moving closer to the glass, Zix did something new. He opened his mouth and very clearly tried to form a word. Jake could not hear anything, but he could see Zix's tongue and lips moving in the shape of human speech. "Are you trying to say something specific?" Jake asked. Zix nodded and tried again. This time Jake heard the faintest whisper of sound. It sounded like Anku. Jake's heart pounded. "Are you saying thank you?" Zix nodded vigorously and tried once more. "Ooh," came out a little louder this time. "Thank you," Jake repeated, speaking slowly and clearly. "Thank you? Thank you," Zix managed, and this time Jake heard it clearly. Jake had to wipe tears from his eyes. "You're welcome, Zix. You are so very welcome." Over the next week, Jake visited Zix every night. Each time he brought music and they worked together on simple words. Zix's voice grew stronger with practice. He learned to say hello and Jake and music. His pronunciation was strange because his mouth was shaped differently than a human's, but the words were clear enough to understand. Dr. Price was shocked when Jake finally told her what had been happening. She came to observe one night and watched in amazement as Zix spoke simple sentences and sang along with earth music. "This is incredible," Dr. Price said. "We've had speech therapists, psychologists, even other draconians try to help him. But you, a maintenance worker with no medical training, you're the one who got through to him." Jake felt a little defensive. "I just treated him like a friend instead of a patient." "That might be exactly what he needed," Dr. Price said thoughtfully. "Draconians are highly emotional beings. They respond to genuine care and affection more than clinical treatment." As Zix's vocabulary grew, he began to tell Jake small pieces of his story. His words were simple and sometimes hard to understand, but the pain in his voice was clear. "Bad men came," Zix said one night while Jake organized medical supplies. "Fire everywhere. Family gone. I'm sorry that happened to you," Jake said. "That must have been very scary." Could not talk after, Zix continued. "Too scared? Too sad. But you're talking now," Jake pointed out. "You're getting better." "You help me," Zix said, pressing his hand against the glass. "You nice to me? Music makes me happy." Jake was starting to understand that Zix had not lost the ability to speak because of physical damage. He had been so traumatized by whatever happened to his family that his mind had shut down his voice as protection. But somehow Jake's friendship and the music from Earth had helped him feel safe enough to try speaking again. "Can you tell me what happened to your family?" Jake asked gently one evening. Zix was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was very soft. "Raiders came to home planet. Took many dragons. Killed others. I hid. Waited long time. Nobody came back." "What kind of raiders?" "Vorthan Empire," Zix said, and his scales darkened with fear. "They steal dragon power. Make weapons from our... Zix struggled to find the right word. He made gestures with his hands, trying to explain. "Your energy?" Jake suggested. "Your magic?" "Yes, magic. They take magic from dragons. Makes us sick. Makes us die." Jake felt sick himself hearing this. He had heard of the Vorthan Empire. They were one of the most feared military forces in the galaxy. But he had not known they were essentially harvesting intelligent beings for their power. "How did you get away?" "Ship found me. Brought me here, but I could not talk. Could not tell anyone about family." "Do you think your family might still be alive?" Zix's eyes lit up with hope. "Maybe. I feel them sometimes, far away. But feel them." That night Jake made a decision. He was just a cleaner, but he had friends on the station who might be able to help. His girlfriend Lisa worked in communications. Commander Hayes was known for caring about refugees. Even Captain Burke, who was usually all business, had a soft spot for victims of war crimes. "Zix," Jake said before leaving that night, "would you like me to ask some people about finding your family?" For the first time since Jake had known him, Zix smiled a real, genuine smile. "Yes, please. Want to go home?" "I can't promise anything," Jake warned, "but I'll try my best." "You good friend, Jake," Zix said. "Best friend I ever have." As Jake left the medical wing that night, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had helped a traumatized dragon find his voice again. Now Zix was counting on him to help find his family. Jake was just a maintenance worker from Ohio, but he was determined not to let his friend down. Tomorrow, he would start asking questions. He would find out who on the station had the authority to search for missing Draconians. And if nobody wanted to help, he would figure out another way. After all, that's what friends do for each other. Jake's first stop the next morning was the communication center where his girlfriend Lisa worked. She was busy monitoring deep space transmissions when he arrived, but she smiled when she saw him. "You're up early," Lisa said, giving him a quick kiss. "Usually you sleep until noon after working the night shift." "I need to ask you about something important," Jake said. "It's about Zix." Lisa knew about Jake's friendship with the little dragon. She thought it was sweet how much Jake cared about the creature, though she did not fully understand why Jake spent so much time in the medical wing. "What about him?" "He's been talking to me," Jake said. "Really talking. And he told me some things about what happened to his family." Jake explained everything Zix had shared about the Vorthan raiders and his missing family. Lisa's expression grew more serious as she listened. "Jake, this is bigger than you realize," she said when he finished. "The Vorthan Empire has been expanding into this sector for months. Command has been tracking their movements, but we haven't had much intelligence about their methods. So you think there might be a way to find Zix's family? Maybe. But you need to talk to someone with more authority than me. I can send messages, but I can't authorize search and rescue operations." Lisa directed Jake to Commander Hayes' office. The commander was a stern woman in her 50s who had been running Kepler 9 for the past 3 years. Jake had only spoken to her a few times, usually when there were changes to his cleaning schedule. Jake knocked on her office door nervously. When she told him to enter, he found her reviewing reports on her computer screen. "Morrison, right?" she said without looking up. "You're one of the night shift cleaners." "Yes, ma'am. I wanted to talk to you about one of the medical patients." This got her attention. Commander Hayes looked up from her screen with raised eyebrows. "You want to talk about a medical patient? That's not exactly your department." Jake explained the whole situation again, from his first conversation with Zix to the dragon's recent revelations about his family. Commander Hayes listened without interrupting, but Jake could see her expression changing from skepticism to interest. "You're telling me that the Draconian child has been communicating with you this whole time, and nobody else knows about it?" "Dr. Price knows now," Jake said quickly. "She's been observing our conversations for the past few days." "And this dragon claims his family was captured by Vorthan raiders?" "Yes, ma'am. He says they take dragon magic to make weapons." Commander Hayes leaned back in her chair and thought for a long moment. "Morrison, do you understand what you're asking me to do? You want me to authorize a search for missing aliens based on the word of a traumatized child?" Jake felt his hopes sinking. "I know it sounds strange, but Zix is telling the truth. I'm sure of it. I'm not doubting the dragon's honesty," Commander Hayes said. "But even if his family is alive, they could be anywhere in Vorthan space. That's hundreds of systems, thousands of planets. But we have to try something," Jake insisted. "Zix has been through enough. If there's any chance his family is out there." "Let me ask you something, Morrison. Why do you care so much about this particular alien? You've been working here for 2 years. Why is this dragon different?" Jake thought about the question seriously. "I grew up on a farm," he said finally. "My dad always taught me that when you find something hurt and scared, you don't just patch it up and forget about it. You do whatever you can to make it whole again." Commander Hayes smiled for the first time since Jake had entered her office. "That's a very human way of looking at things. Is that bad?" "Not at all. It's exactly what makes humans valuable in situations like this." She turned to her computer and began typing. "I'm going to put you in touch with Captain Burke. He's our military liaison and he's been tracking Vorthan activities. If anyone can help you find information about captured Draconians, it's him." Jake left Commander Hayes' office feeling hopeful. Captain Burke was intimidating, a tall, serious man who always wore his uniform perfectly pressed, but at least he was willing to listen. Jake found Captain Burke in the strategy room, studying star charts and fleet movements. When Jake explained why he was there, Burke's reaction was different than he expected. "You're the cleaner who got the dragon to talk?" Burke asked. "Yes, sir. I've been reading Dr. Price's reports. What you accomplished is remarkable. Most Draconians who suffer that level of trauma never recover their speech at all." "Zix is stronger than people think," Jake said. "Apparently so. And you say he's provided information about Vorthan capture methods?" Jake repeated everything Zix had told him about the raiders and what they did to captured dragons. Captain Burke took notes and asked several detailed questions. This matches intelligence we've gathered from other sources, Burke said when Jake finished. The Vorthons have been harvesting psychic energy from various species to power their new weapon systems. Dragons are particularly valuable because of their natural magical abilities. So you believe Zix's story? I do, and I think there might be a way to help him. Burke pulled up a new star chart on his screen. 3 weeks ago, our scouts detected a large Vorthon facility in the Kepler system. It's heavily defended, but our analysis suggests it's some kind of processing center. Processing for what? Captured psychic beings. If Zix's family was taken alive, there's a good chance they're being held there. Jake felt his heart racing. Can we rescue them? That's a big question, Burke said. A direct military assault would be suicide. The facility is protected by an entire battle fleet, but there might be other options. Burke explained that the Galactic Council was already planning to investigate Vorthon war crimes. If they could provide specific evidence about captured Draconians, it might be enough to authorize a diplomatic rescue mission. The problem is we need proof, Burke said. Testimony from one traumatized child, even a very credible one, isn't enough to justify risking lives. What kind of proof? Details about the facility, names of captured individuals, evidence of the harvesting process, things that only someone who was there could know. Jake understood what Burke was suggesting. You want Zix to remember more about what happened. Only if he's capable of it without causing further trauma. Dr. Price would have to approve any attempt to recover those memories. That evening, Jake returned to room 247 with mixed feelings. He was excited that there might be a real chance to help Zix's family, but he was also worried about asking the little dragon to relive his worst memories. Zix greeted him enthusiastically as always, chirping hello and asking about the music for that night. Jake had brought a new playlist of Earth songs, but first he needed to have a serious conversation. Zix, I talked to some people today about finding your family, Jake said as he set up the music player. Zix's eyes went wide with hope. You find them? Maybe. But I need you to help me understand exactly what happened when the raiders came. Can you tell me more details? Zix's happy expression faded. He sat down and wrapped his tail around himself, a sign that he was feeling scared or sad. I know it's hard to think about, Jake said gently, but the people who might be able to help your family need to know more about where they were taken and what the raiders were doing. Will hurt to remember, Zix said quietly. I'll be right here with you. And if you need to stop, we'll stop. Zix looked at Jake for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I try, for family. Over the next hour, with Jake's gentle encouragement and soothing music playing in the background, Zix began to share more details about the attack on his home colony. He described the Vorthon ships, their weapons, and the way they separated captured dragons into different groups. They took strong ones first, Zix said, his voice shaking. Adults with big magic. Put them in special cages, then took younger ones. Left babies and old ones. What happened to the babies and old ones? Zix's scales darkened. It's okay, Jake said quickly. You don't have to say it. But Zix shook his head. Need to say. For family. They killed babies and old ones. Said not useful. Jake felt sick, but he forced himself to stay calm for Zix's sake. What about your parents? Do you remember which group they were in? Mother very strong. Father too. They took them first. Put in big ship with other strong dragons. How many dragons were captured? Many, maybe 100, from all the colonies and system. This was exactly the kind of specific information that Captain Burke needed. Jake spent another hour helping Zix remember details about the ships, the facility where the dragons were taken, and anything else that might help identify the location. By the end of the conversation, Zix was exhausted and emotional, but he seemed proud of himself for being able to share his memories. I did good? He asked Jake. You did great, Jake said. You're very brave, Zix. Your family would be proud of you. When we find them, Jake wished he could promise that they would succeed, but he had learned to be honest with Zix. I don't know, but now we have a real chance to try. That night, as Jake left the medical wing, he carried with him detailed notes about everything Zix had remembered. Tomorrow he would take that information to Captain Burke and Dr. Price. With luck, it would be enough to start a real rescue mission. For the first time since meeting Zix, Jake allowed himself to hope that the little dragon might actually be reunited with his family. It seemed almost so. Captain Burke was impressed with the information Zix had provided. He spent the morning comparing the dragon's memories with intelligence reports and star charts. By afternoon, he had confirmed that Zix's description matched the Vorthan facility in the Kepler system almost perfectly. "This is exactly what we needed," Burke told Jake during their meeting. "The Galactic Council has approved a diplomatic mission to investigate the facility. If we can prove the Vorthans are holding prisoners there, we can demand their release." Jake felt a surge of hope. "When will the mission happen?" "Next week. But there's something else you should know." Burke's expression grew serious. "We've been monitoring some unusual energy readings from deep space. Our sensors have detected something large moving toward this system." "What kind of something?" "We're not sure yet. It's too far away to get clear readings, but whatever it is, it's bigger than any ship in our databases." Jake did not like the worried look in Burke's eyes. "Do you think it's connected to Zix somehow?" "I don't know, but the timing is strange. Just as we're preparing to investigate his family's disappearance, something unknown is heading our way." That evening, Jake found Zix more agitated than usual. The little dragon was pacing back and forth in his enclosure, his scales flickering between gold and dark amber. He kept looking toward the ceiling as if he could see through the station's hull into space. "What's wrong, buddy?" Jake asked as he entered the room. "Feel something," Zix said, pressing both hands against the glass wall. "Something coming." Jake's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, something coming?" "Big, powerful, angry." Zix's scales darkened further. "Feels like family, but not family." "I don't understand." Zix struggled to find the right words. "Dragons have connection. Family connection. Can feel each other across stars. You can sense other dragons from far away?" "Yes, always feel family even when far. But this different, this angry, this..." Zix paused, searching for the word. "Hunting." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Hunting for what?" "For me." The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. If Zix could sense family connections across space, and if something powerful and angry was heading toward the station, there was only one logical explanation. "Zix, do you think one of your family members is looking for you?" "Maybe, but feel wrong, feel unbroken." Jake immediately contacted Captain Burke and Dr. Price. Within an hour, both of them were in room 247, listening as Zix tried to explain what he was sensing. "Dragons who lose family sometimes become fury dragons," Zix explained to the gathered humans. "Grief makes them sick." "Makes them dangerous, and dangerous how?" Dr. Price asked. "They destroy everything. Look for lost family, but destroy anything that gets in way. Cannot think clearly. Only feel pain and anger." Captain Burke pulled up the sensor readings on his portable tablet. "The object is still 3 days out, but it's definitely heading straight for us. If it maintains current speed, it will arrive just as our diplomatic mission reaches the Vorthan facility." "That can't be a coincidence," Dr. Price said. "It's not," Zix said quietly. "Whoever comes, they feel me calling for help. But grief makes them crazy. They will try to destroy everything to get to me." Jake felt a terrible weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. By helping Zix recover his voice and his memories, had he accidentally called down destruction on the entire station? "How do we stop a fury dragon?" Burke asked. "Usually cannot stop," Zix said sadly. "Once become fury, only cure is finding lost family or death." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Dr. Price spoke up. "What if we could prove to them that you're safe and that we're helping find your family? Fury dragons not think clearly. Might attack first, ask questions later." Over the next 2 days, the situation grew more desperate. The unknown object continued approaching at tremendous speed, and now the station's sensors could make out more details. It was definitely a ship, but unlike any vessel in the galactic databases, it seemed to be made of crystallized energy rather than metal, and it was easily the size of a small moon. Captain Burke had ordered the evacuation of all non-essential personnel, but that still left thousands of people on the station. The evacuation ships were too slow to get everyone to safety before the unknown vessel arrived. Jake spent his time with Zix, trying to help the little dragon figure out who was coming and whether there was any way to communicate with them. "I think his mother," Zix said on the second night, his scales now permanently dark with fear and sadness. "Feel her anger. Feel her pain. She looked for me long time. Can you talk to her? The way dragons talk to each other across space? I try, but fury dragons not listen good. Pain too loud in their heads. Jake watched Zix press his hands against the glass and close his eyes in concentration. The little dragon's scales began to glow faintly, and Jake could feel something in the air, like the moment before a lightning strike. "Mother," Zix whispered, though Jake knew he was not speaking aloud in the normal sense. "Mother, I hear, I safe. Good people help me." For several minutes, Zix maintained his concentration. Sweat beaded on his forehead from the effort. Finally, he opened his eyes and slumped against the wall. "She hear me," he said weakly, but anger still too strong. "She think humans hurt me, think humans keep me prisoner. Can you tell her that we're trying to help find the rest of your family?" "I try, but she see me in cage, see me in medical place. Think I prisoner." Jake realized that from an outside perspective, Zix's situation did look like imprisonment. He was kept in a medical facility behind locked doors and glass walls. Someone who did not understand the circumstances might easily assume he was being held against his will. "What if we let you out of the enclosure?" Jake suggested. "What if we showed her that you're free to move around the station?" Dr. Price, who had been listening from the doorway, shook her head. "That's against all safety protocols. We don't know how other species might react to an uncontained draconian. But if his mother sees him locked up, she'll think he's a prisoner," Jake argued. "She'll attack the station to rescue him. And if we let him out and something goes wrong, we'll have 2 dangerous dragons to deal with instead of 1 fury dragon approaching from outside." Jake looked at Zix, who had been following the conversation even though some of the words were too difficult for his limited English. "Zix, if we let you out of this room, would you be able to convince your mother that we're friends? Maybe? If she see me free, see me happy, might listen better." Dr. Price was clearly torn between medical caution and the need to prevent a catastrophic attack on the station. Finally, she made her decision. "I'll authorize a limited release, but only within the medical wing and only with full supervision." Jake felt a surge of relief and gratitude. "Thank you." The next morning, Jake arrived at work to find Dr. Price already preparing to move Zix to a larger room with no glass barriers. The little dragon was nervous but excited about the prospect of leaving his enclosure for the first time in months. "Remember," Dr. Price told both Jake and Zix, "this is temporary and conditional. If there are any problems at all, Zix goes back into containment immediately." Jake helped Zix out of the enclosure and into the larger medical room. The dragon's first steps on solid ground in months were shaky, but his joy was unmistakable. He spread his wings for the first time since Jake had known him, revealing their beautiful golden membranes. "Feel better," Zix said, stretching muscles that had been cramped for too long. "Feel more like real dragon." As the day progressed, reports came in about the approaching ship. It was now close enough for detailed scans, and the results were terrifying. The vessel was not just large, it was powerful beyond anything the station's defenses could handle. It carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets and shielding that would make it nearly invulnerable to attack. But the most disturbing discovery was that the ship itself seemed to be alive. It was not made of metal and circuits, but of living crystal that pulsed with organic energy. This was not just a draconian ship, it was a draconian, transformed by grief and rage into something far more dangerous than nature had ever intended. "She not just fury dragon," Zix said when Jake shared this news with him. "She become ship, become weapon. Grief change her into monster." Jake stared at the sensor readings in horror. Zix's mother had literally become a living weapon of destruction, powered by her desperate search for her lost child. And now she was less than 12 hours away from Kepler 9 station. Is there any way to change her back? Only if she find family. Only if pain stop. Jake made a decision that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. "Then we need to make sure she finds you. Not just alive, but happy and free. But if she attacks station, we'll figure out how to protect everyone else. But first she needs to see that you're okay." That night, as Jake prepared for what might be his final shift on Kepler 9, he reflected on how much his life had changed since meeting one small silent dragon. He had started as a simple cleaner just trying to do his job. Now he was standing at the center of a crisis that could affect the entire sector. But looking at Zix, who was finally able to move freely and spread his wings, Jake knew he had made the right choices. Sometimes helping one person, even a small dragon, was worth any risk. The living ship arrived at Kepler 9 exactly when the computers predicted it would. Jake was in the medical wing with Zix when every alarm on the station began to sound at once. Through the viewports, they could see something that defied description. Solarith the Golden had once been a normal Draconian, probably not much larger than a human. But grief and fury had transformed her into something incredible and terrifying. Her ship body was 3 miles long and made of living crystal that pulsed with golden light. Wing-like energy projections stretched out from her sides, and her original head, now the size of a building, glowed with psychic fire at the front of the vessel. "Mother," Zix whispered, pressing his small hands against the viewport. She's so angry, so hurt. The station's defensive weapons began charging, but Captain Burke's voice came over the intercom before they could fire. "All weapons hold. Repeat, all weapons hold. We are not engaging the Draconian vessel." Jake knew this was the right decision. Even the station's most powerful weapons would barely scratch something like Solarith, and attacking her would only prove that humans were enemies. Dr. Price burst into the medical wing, her face pale with fear and excitement. "Jake, we need to get Zix to the main observation deck. If his mother is going to see him, it has to be somewhere she can actually look." The observation deck was normally off-limits to medical patients, but these were not normal circumstances. Jake helped Zix walk through corridors filled with panicking people. Many of the station's residents had never seen a real dragon before, and Zix's presence caused quite a stir. "Is that the little dragon from the medical wing?" one person asked. "Why is he out of containment?" demanded another. Jake ignored the questions and focused on getting Zix to the observation deck. They arrived to find Captain Burke, Commander Hayes, and a dozen other senior officers already there, watching the massive ship creature hover just outside the station's defensive perimeter. "She's scanning us," Burke reported. "Some kind of psychic probe. She's looking for something specific." "She looked for me," Zix said, walking up to the main viewport. "Mother, I hear." Zix placed both hands on the transparent aluminum and closed his eyes. His scales began to glow with the same golden light as his mother's ship body. Jake could feel energy building in the air around them. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive ship creature turned toward the observation deck. Jake found himself looking directly into an eye the size of a shuttle bay. The intelligence behind that eye was vast and terrible, but Jake could also see the pain and love that drove it. "Mother," Zix said, and this time his voice carried beyond normal sound. Jake could feel the psychic communication passing between mother and child. "I alive, I safe. These humans help me." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Solarith's mental voice was like a hurricane of emotion. Joy, relief, rage, and protective fury all mixed together. Several of the humans on the observation deck stumbled from the psychic pressure. "She wanted to take me away," Zix said, still maintaining his connection with his mother. "She think humans might hurt me later." "Tell her we're trying to find the rest of your family," Jake said. "Tell her about the diplomatic mission." Zix tried to explain, but Jake could see the frustration on the little dragon's face. "She not believe. Think humans lie to keep me here." Commander Hayes stepped forward. "What does she want us to do to prove we're telling the truth?" "She want to see other family, want proof they still alive." This was the moment Jake had been dreading. They had no proof that Zix's family was still alive. The diplomatic mission to the Vorten facility was still hours away from reaching its destination. They might learn nothing, or they might discover that all the captured dragons were already dead. But then Captain Burke spoke up. "Actually, we do have some proof." He activated his portable communicator and connected to the diplomatic ship that was approaching the Vorthon facility. "Captain Wells, this is Burke. I need you to transmit everything you're seeing right now." The main screen in the observation deck flickered to life, showing the view from the diplomatic vessel. In the distance, they could see the Vorthon processing facility, a massive complex of buildings and energy, collectors built on an asteroid. "We're detecting multiple life signs," came Captain Wells's voice over the communicator. "Large biosignatures consistent with adult Draconians." Zix gasped and pressed closer to the screen. "Mother, look. See facility. Family there." The psychic communication between Zix and Solareth intensified. Jake could feel the massive ship creature's attention focusing on the screen, trying to sense her mate and other children across the vast distance of space. "She feel them," Zix said excitedly. "Father alive, brother alive, sister alive, all in facility." But Solarith's joy quickly turned to fury again. If her family was being held prisoner and possibly tortured, Her first instinct was to destroy everything responsible for their suffering. She want to attack facility now, Zix warned. She very angry at Vorthens. Tell her that won't work, Captain Burke said urgently. The facility is heavily defended. A direct attack would get her family killed. Jake watched the massive ship creature begin to turn away from the station, clearly preparing to travel to the Vorthen facility for a devastating assault. They had only minutes to convince her that there was a better way. Zix, Jake said, does your mother understand what diplomacy means? That sometimes talking works better than fighting. Dragons not usually talk to enemies. Usually fight. But humans do things differently, right? We try to solve problems without violence when we can. Jake had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane.
What if I went with her?
What if a human came along to show her how we solve problems? Everyone on the observation deck stared at Jake in shock. Dr. Price was the first to recover her voice. Jake, that's suicide. You can't survive in space, and even if you could, she's a fury dragon. She might kill you without even thinking about it. But if I'm there as Zix's friend, she might listen to me. Zix could translate between us. Commander Hayes shook her head. I can't authorize sending a civilian on a mission like that. Then don't authorize it, Jake said. Let me volunteer. Before anyone could stop him, Jake stepped up to the viewport and spoke directly to the massive eye looking down at them. Solarith, my name is Jake. I'm Zix's friend. I want to help you save your family, but I need you to trust me. He felt the weight of that ancient, powerful mind focusing on him. It was like standing in front of a star, overwhelming and potentially deadly. But Jake also felt something else, curiosity. Solarith was trying to understand how a simple human had become so important to her child. I know you want to attack the facility, Jake continued, but that will get your family killed. Let me show you a different way. Let me come with you and negotiate for their release. The psychic pressure increased until Jake thought his head might explode. But then he felt Zix's smaller mind joining the connection, helping to translate and protect him from the worst of his mother's mental power. She wanted to know why humans care about dragon family, Zix said. Jake thought about the question seriously, because that's what humans do. When we care about someone, we care about everyone they care about. Zix is my friend, so his family matters to me too. This seemed to surprise Solarith. Through Zix's translation, Jake could sense her confusion. In her experience, species only cared about their own kind. The idea that a human would risk his life for dragons he had never met was difficult for her to understand. Also, Jake added, I've learned that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to combine different approaches. You have power and determination. I have diplomatic training and knowledge of how other species think. Together we might succeed where either of us would fail alone. Jake held his breath as Solarith considered his offer. Finally, a section of her ship body began to glow differently, and Jake realized she was opening some kind of docking bay. She accept, Zix said, his voice filled with amazement. She let you come. But Jake? The little dragon looked scared. Please be careful. Mother still hurt inside. Still dangerous. Jake hugged Zix goodbye, something he had never been able to do when the dragon was behind glass walls. I'll bring your family home, he promised. 20 minutes later, Jake found himself in the most incredible vehicle he had ever seen. The interior of Solareth's ship body was like being inside a living cathedral made of crystal and light. The walls pulsed with organic rhythms, and the air itself seemed to sparkle with psychic energy. Solareth's original body, still recognizably draconian but now 30 feet tall, waited for him in what might have been a bridge or command center. When she spoke, her voice was like distant thunder. Human Jake, she said in heavily accented English. You care for my small one. I do, Jake said simply. He's a good friend. You help him speak again. He helped himself. I just listened. This answer seemed to please her. Listening is a rare gift. Most beings only hear themselves. Over the next few hours as they traveled toward the Vorthen facility, Jake learned about Solareth's transformation. Grief and psychic power had allowed her to bond with her ship, essentially becoming a living vessel powered by her determination to find her family. It was not a natural process, and Jake could see that it was slowly destroying her .L form.